I'm Libby Stubbs.
And I'm Millie Connell.
And we both play for the Millwall Lionesses and are sponsored by the No One Likes Us Talking team.
Why not sponsor one of our teammates just like they do?
To find out how, just email commercial@millwall-lionesses.com. I'll say that again. Just email commercial@millwall-lionesses.com.
That is all you have to do, and it will help us to get back to where we belong.
Now enjoy our Millwall fan show from the No One Likes Us Talking team.
Hi, Bethany Warren here, and you've joined us for our Millwall fan show with the Millwall No One Likes Us Talking team. Enjoy!
Hello and welcome to the No One Likes Us Talking podcast. So joining us today, we have Debbie Julians. Hi, Debbie.
Hi.
Ted Robinson. Hi, Ted.
Evening, Gary.
And Henry. How are you doing, Henry?
Evening, Gary. How you doing, everyone? Lovely to hear you all.
Good. Firstly, how are we all? And I just wanted to speak quickly before we go on to the main crux of the show and quickly cover Forest and Blackpool. I know there's not much to say. So, Henry, I'll let you start first on Forest and Blackpool.
Well, two very different games. I think we were in complete control of that game until Ojo and Bradshaw went off. I think after the break, either team could have won. Both teams had about 8 chances. I don't know how Forest didn't score. I don't know how Benicophobe didn't get a hat trick. Their goalkeeper having an absolute blinder, and at the death of poor throwing from Malone, and they nick it. So I think we were unlucky there. But Blackpool had absolutely no redeeming features, with the exception of Tyler Burry coming on at the end as a sort of cameo, and maybe a little bit from Conor Mahoney and the new guy Burke. It was shocking, so bad that even though I travelled a round trip of about 7,000 miles, I left before the end.
So you were one of the ones waving at the Blackpool fans with the money going past, were you?
I'm too old for that nonsense now. I just walked out to try and get an earlier train because it was the worst performance I think under Gary Rowett, with the exception of maybe Borough away last season when we lost 3-0.
Fair enough. Debbie, what have you got a bit comment on that?
That unfortunately that was I didn't personally go, but I heard that it was appalling, and so many people just switched off any sort of at all and left the same as you, which is disappointing.
Fair enough. And young Ted.
Oh, young Ted. Oh, Gal, thank you very much for that. I echo a bit what Emery said about Forest. I thought we was a bit unlucky, certainly to lose the game, because it was a typical championship game. It could have gone either way. Most games finish the difference of one goal, and it had to be that man grabbing. But that was the infuriating thing about it, is we shot ourselves in the foot with the throw-in and whatever, and there was no reason for Scott Malone to throw that to Benicophobe at that point, and the way he did.
Exactly.
It was a point in the bag. If anything, you let everybody settle down. I mean, Mason Bennett had run 60 yards to win the throw-in, and he's still laying off the pitch, and Scott Malone throws it. I don't know what he thought he was trying to achieve, because there's no way Benicophobe was going to run halfway along the pitch and score a goal. So, it was bad match management at that particular time, but it was a good performance. And look, there was some injuries coming out of that game that we can ill afford to have, and it did disrupt us, but we kept going. And Emery quite rightly said their goalkeeper made one or two fantastic saves. One that he caught with one-handed. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know how he did that.
I was right behind that from the Docker stand. Yeah, I thought he was in.
I thought he was in. Yeah, and it wasn't only that. He looked like he was struggling, and somehow he must have Velcro on his gloves because it just stuck. So the Forest game, I was infuriated coming out of the ground, losing 1-0 like that. But when you think about it and look at it, it weren't a bad performance. Blackpool, I don't know why this team are so inconsistent in the way that they are. I'm sure we're going to talk about Gary Rowett and what he does later, but we look at the performance and that. That is not a Millwall performance. That is not what we come to expect as fans. And I'm pretty sure it's not what he expects as a manager, to be quite honest. But, you know, at the end of the day, the two go hand in hand, and he has to take responsibility when it doesn't work. I've defended Gary Rowett quite a bit, but, you know, it's Blackpool, for Christ's sake. And we went up there as if he was playing Fulham, you know, in the way that we lined up. I mean, I didn't get that to start with, Nat. But you have to take little positives from a poor performance, and that is Tyler Bury looked like he could give us something. It was nice to see Conor Mahoney back on the pitch, and I'm sure Ollie Burke's going to be a good signing for us. There's a lot of games coming up. I think Millwall need a run of games, if I'm honest, at this moment in time, with a few people hopefully coming back from injury. I know there's a few long-term ones, but a few guys settling in, and yeah, I think, you know, I fully expect, because of how poor we was against Blackpool, we should be more like the Forest game at home to West Brom. Fingers crossed, anyway.
Touch wood. Thanks, guys. So, in the first part of this new bi-weekly show, we'll be discussing the team's inconsistency, as Ted just said, and the Rowett out question. And in the second part of the show, we'll be speaking to a former Lions player. And following that, we'll be discussing the Romans, the Pride, and the games ahead for the Lions. Before we get started, let's listen to our colleagues over at the Proper Blokes Club.
Hello, I'm Scott and I founded the Proper Blokes Club. What is that I hear you say? Well, it's for men who have experienced or going through a tough time and fancy going for a walk and a talk. Or it could be you just want to get back on top of your game, maybe feeling lonely, or you could even be new to the area and just want to get out for a walk and a talk. This could be for you. So if you'd like to join us, we run sessions every Thursday, Sunday, starting at HMS Belfast, walking along the Thames up towards Surrey Quays. Thursday start time is 6 o'clock and Sunday start time is 6:30. If you guys are on Facebook, Twitter or Instagram, find the Proper Blokes Club, give it a like, give it a follow, tag and share with your friends, or if you'd like to do it the old-fashioned way, you can call Scott on 07397 501110. That's 07397 501110, and we can make arrangements for you to come along. So I look forward to seeing you joining us soon at the Proper Blokes Club.
I'm Gary Staff, and I'm back with another Nights of Talking team of Debbie Julians, Ted Robinson, and Henry Morgan. So now we're going to talk about the inconsistency and the Gary Rowett out situations. I personally want to set this conversation up with my own personal views. These are from my heart. These are from how I feel at the moment, and have no bearing on anyone else from the No One Likes a Talking team. And the panel will put their parts today. But I just wanted to get something off my chest, and this is my opportunity to do it. Personally, I think Gary Rowett is, at the moment, the right man for the squad. And I say at the moment. And these are my personal views why. He's not had much luck with injuries. These have hardly gone in his favour, and the current Millwall side will be very different if we had Leonard, Ballard, Ojo, Bradshaw, Pearce, Saville and Mahoney. I know he's back now, but he's missed half the season. There's been lots of dead wood. We've had to play Smith because we've had no other options, but he was giving us something different. But good luck, Matt. You've gone on to a good little league there, where you can probably score some goals and do better. So just get a bit more game time under your belt and carry on with your career. JDB, enough said. Thompson, why don't you go to Portsmouth, mate, and get some football under your belt and maybe come back in a couple of years' time? Because we do love you, but at the moment it's just not working for you, mate. The issues surrounding the club affecting the reputation. I'm going over this quickly because I do not want to talk about this anymore. The knee, homophobia, bottle throwing, the press, all affecting the club. The players probably don't want to hear it. They're probably bored of it. And I'll go on to some of the reasons why maybe this is affecting us. COVID. The club had no money. They've lost money sincerely through COVID. And there's people out there expecting us to go and throw millions and millions of pounds around. The club haven't got it. We barely survived. And we're lucky to be alive. But if it wasn't for a very good chairman over in America. The transfer game. We can't just go and say we want that player and he comes to us. The transfer game is to in and fro in. And if I got over passionate, I'm sorry. But we've got to understand that Gary Rowett is trying to get these players in. He's not just sitting back. I'm the first one to look all day on Twitter to see if anything comes up about the players. But sometimes the lack of information is sometimes a good thing because it's keeping it close to their chest and they might be working to get that deal done for us at the weekend. The fans, yes, I can understand the recent frustrations, but it appears everyone is a football manager these days and they know the inner workings of a club. Nobody knows that apart from Gary Rowett, Steve Kavanagh, John Berylson, etc., and all the people that are inside the club. We all want to have our opinions, but we all need to know, and honestly, that we know nothing about what's going on in that club unless we've got an inside mole or something. But I don't think anyone's got that. Attacking football, yes. Oh my God, I want to see it. I miss attacking football. But unfortunately, I do feel under Gary Rowett, our football's changed. It has changed. I don't know if it's for the better, but that's why we've got Gary. We have to deal with that. I know Blackpool was awful. I sat in the pub on on my phone watching it, and I think I stopped after 20 minutes because it was that bad. The only time I switched back on was about 20 minutes from the end when Bury come on, as Henry was saying, and it looked exciting. And I thought, you know what, we might nick something here. Would the fans have also been happy with us playing attacking football in that game and losing 4 or 5-0? This is what we've got to weigh up. It's a frustrating game. And if you listen to Gary Rowett after the game, he said he had to do that because he didn't have no attacking intent. He knew he had to shut up shop because he had no one up there. He had basically a Phobie and can't think who was up there. It's frustrating me a little bit. Malone and maybe 1 or 2 others. Obviously, Mahoney hasn't got 90 minutes in him at the moment, so he couldn't even do that. And Bury probably hasn't got the experience to play 90 minutes. But I do feel he's probably going to start against West Bromwich Albion on Saturday, and then we'll see. I do feel he wants to change the personnel at the club. I know some of our players are not good enough. I was speaking to Phil Coleman recently, and he's pointed out things that I probably missed about our centre-backs. I'm thinking, oh, they're brilliant, but they are slow and getting beat left, right and centre all over the place. So it's just very frustrating at the moment, but I personally wanted to get that off my chest. I don't want us to be a Watford. I don't want us to keep sacking the manager, and we could be a lot worse situations. However, if the lack of success continues, I agree, his position will become indefensible. So, with that off my chest, I hand it over to the panel, and Henry, Ted, Debbie, you decide who wants to go first, because that's just my view, and I just want to get that out there.
Henry, you go first. I actually agree with you, but Henry, carry on.
Gaz, I think a lot of what you said, I think, makes utter sense. I don't see how losing Gary Rowett when we've given him as much time as we have at this particular moment is going to, be beneficial for the football club, to be perfectly honest. I think, like I said, he's lost 6 key players. Any manager would struggle with that. I think he needs to have a look at some of his tactics. I think what you said about attacking football is absolutely bang on. I think that, I don't think he had any choices at Blackpool. People getting upset with the team that he put out, and I was like, well, who else was available, quite frankly? The other minor issue that I would have as well is that some of his signings have not been brilliant. He's gone with what he's known, and he's gone with players that were good probably 3 years ago. I thought Cliftonville's had an okay season so far, but he's gone off the boil a bit. But Evans, whether he's been played out of position or whatever, I don't know, but he hasn't looked particularly brilliant. He's clearly asking Billy Mitchell to play a specific role. He's clearly asking George Saville to play a specific role. And when Saville plays for Northern Ireland, he plays the link man in the middle and looks a much, much better player. And I know he's been getting a lot of grief from fans this season, but I think he's been asked to do a role and he's trying to sit in there. Now, you've got to let someone like him go on because he'll get you 12 goals from midfield. And I think, that's the kind of stuff that we're lacking. And I completely agree with you in terms of bringing in personnel. I think maybe the one thing that we could do is diversify the way in which we look for players and pinch some of the ideas that Brentford have used. And I say only some of them because I'm not advocating getting rid of our academy or anything like that. But the data modelling that Brentford use, 92 different leagues across the world, looking at GX scores and lots of other stuff, sort of like, the Nate Silver.
Yep. Moneyball tactics.
And analytics, I don't know if they're buying that in at the moment, and if they are, is that how we spotted these youngsters that we put bids in abroad? But and if it is, great. But it's always a difficult window, January, to buy in, isn't it? It's never straightforward. And actually, if we had a full strength squad, I think we would easily be knocking on the door of the playoffs, and we were only 3 points off the playoffs just before Christmas. So I absolutely agree with all of that. I think it's well documented what I think about issues surrounding the club. But what I would say is, if you begin every home game with people booing, it sets a negative atmosphere. It puts everyone on edge. And I think how can it not affect the performance of the team? I mean, those are questions that I ask, like, genuinely. And, I've had lots of conversations about people and the wrongs and rights and whys and wherefores of booing and stuff, but whatever else, putting all of that stuff to one side, I've been told by senior people at the football club that it is affecting the football club and the wider community that we try and support. So those are the issues, and I completely agree, Gaz. I don't think any of this matters. I think that with the run of games we got coming up, I can't see how Gary Rowett survives past the Blackburn game, if I'm honest with you. And I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. Where are the points coming from? Preston at home. Preston at the Den is a bogey team for us. They were the end of Mark McGee. And then we've got to go to Fulham. I mean, the only one thing I would say, and we'll get into this in a minute, is it's probably a good time to be playing West Brom. But there we are. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, Debbie.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with both of what you're saying. I think that Rowett should stay until the end of his contract. We don't want to be flirting with relegation. We don't want to tempt fate and have that battle. He does play defensive, which is boring, but he doesn't have the forwards. He doesn't have the attackers. And in my opinion, he won't be with us next season at all. He lost in one weekend. He lost OJ out for 10 weeks, Bradshaw and Saville and Jed Wallace. I mean, that's a difficult one to do. He didn't bring back Alex Mitchell, which is a surprise. He's out to Lake Orient, isn't he? And now he's a big good defensive. He's quick, and then we are slow at the back. And he's 6 foot tall and double quick as well. So there's a surprise. We have to be careful.
Debbie, here's a question: can we just rely on our youngsters to get us out of this mess? Maybe that's what Gary's saying. Would he rather have a bit of experience to try and do that job? And unfortunately, he's lost that in Ballard and Pierce, and now we're stuck with just Hutchinson and Cooper. So
he doesn't actually like playing the youngsters. I think he wants to play safe and keep us up where we are, because we're not in a bad position. We're in the middle of the league, and yeah, it is boring, but he's just playing safe. Yeah. And I think I think once he feels that he's in a secure place there, he will bring in the younger players and start playing them off. I mean, Oliver Burke, I think it is a very, very good buy. He once sold for 15 million, didn't he, at the age of 20?
Twice he got sold for 15 million.
Yeah, twice.
Yeah, twice.
I was really surprised that. I mean, let's hope he can get his career back on track with us, because clearly something's gone wrong. But he's an absolutely exceptional signing.
Yeah, he didn't feel comfortable somewhere along the line.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah. He was rapid.
I mean, he could be our next Jed Wallace. You just don't know. Yeah. I mean, as for that he's not trying, of course he's trying to sign. And we haven't got a bottomless pit. And we've got until Monday, haven't we? Yep. And we've got clubs that definitely will be selling, and the Derby, I would have thought, and Bristol City. And it's a little bit like an auction. You've got to watch, they've got to watch their financial fair rules. And they're most probably holding out for better offers than what we're offering. You don't know what we've offered. But, it's a bit like going to an auction, isn't it? you know, they turn around at the end of the day and turn around and say, well, yeah, we'll take your offer now because we didn't get a better one. No one, as you said before, is in that inner circle, so you just don't know. And as for the moaners or people that are complaining, you always have had that, and now we've got the social media, which it sort of expands that. We've got to be very careful of how you know, the youngsters coming in, if they go out on the field and they've got booing and they've got all this going on, that will frighten them away, and we've got to be, that's a very tender time. And we've got to be careful what we do, and we just need to get really. He will go. I can't see him stay. Who we bring in, I don't know. Well, I have a couple of ideas, but I don't think it's worth saying. But
Brilliant, nice thoughts, Debbie. And over to you, Ted.
Well, just quickly on the transfer, I mean, Debbie touched on it there, and she's 100% right. Every transfer window, I don't know why people go into a frenzy when it opens up, because nothing ever happens till the last 3 days of it anyway. It's always the same thing. You look on the last day, and there'll be a list of people that have moved from one place to another, and all the rest of the transfer window, we all sit there doing what you said, Gal, and that is looking every day to see if something's happened, and nothing has. And then within the last 2 days, it all kicks off, because it tends to be a snowball effect. You know, once somebody goes, then that goes to someone else, and blah, blah, blah. I don't doubt for 1 minute that come Monday, we would have had 2 or maybe 3 players coming in to the club. I'm positive in that mind. I think that's what's going to happen. But where Gary Rowett's concerned, and that you said, I think you said he wasn't very lucky. I think he's been the unluckiest manager we've had.
Yeah.
And for him to keep us where we've been, you know, for the last couple of seasons, and that, I know a lot of people might not like the style of football he has, but let's face it, we're Millwall Football Club, and we're still in the Championship. And we're still nearer to the playoffs than we are the relegation zone, and that's despite the fact of the injuries that we've been talking about. And one that I think has been a bigger loss than people perhaps have realised is Daniel Ballard. He fitted in so well as a right-sided player, and it allowed Sean Hutchinson, who I think is actually better in the middle than he is out right, because he reads the game really well. Sean Hutchinson, if you look at his stats, he's probably up the top there with interceptions. He can see a ball, and it gives him a little bit more time. And Jake Cooper makes a perfect sort of free. And I think we've missed Ballard. And then, like Debbie quite rightly said, against Palace, we was giving Palace a run for their. Against Forest, we was the better side against Forest. Against Palace, we was probably at times the better side, apart from 15 minutes in the second half. But then all of a sudden, you take away a guy that was all of a sudden everyone was saying, yeah, thank Christ he's signed, he's scoring goals, you know, and he gets injured. Shea Ojo was beginning to show what perhaps Liverpool see in him and brought him on for, you know. The Jed Wallace saga, I don't think is doing us many favours, but what I would say about the Jed Wallace thing, and as you say, this is opinions, and this is my opinion, Jed Wallace has put the football club in the position that we're in with Jed Wallace, because he has decided in his own mind, by what it seems, that he wants to leave at the end of the season. Now, if I'm Millwall Football Club, which I think they're right to do, I'd get rid of him. I'd sell him, because I would want money for Jed Wallace. We could have had a lot of money for him the other season. But Jed Wallace has put us in that position by not signing the contract that was offered to him. He decided what he wanted to do. So that has put Millwall into a position where, I'm sorry, I like Jed Wallace. He's been our best player, our best forward player for the last 2 seasons. But I, for one, would like to say now, thank you very much, Jed. If you're going in the summer, I'm going to sell you now. If I can get £2 million for him and go and sign 2 players for £1 million each, I'm going to be a happy Millwall fan, because I think we've got a chance here. And it's what Jed wants. Jed wants to go, you know. So people might not like that, and they might be, but I think you're living in a bit of cloud cuckoo land if you think that Jed Wallace is going to sign a contract before the end of the season. So my opinion, I'm not saying that if Jed Wallace can play for us, I know that I'm sure the guy will give 110%, because he's that type of person. I've had the privilege of meeting him a couple of times and speaking to him and whatever. I don't doubt for 1 minute he'd be, he'd give it his all. He's loyal like that. But that sort of negativity or bouncing around that feeds off onto the fans also comes into the team. Where you say about the booing and all that, you're right, Gal. I don't know, You know, the guys at Boo now, this your choice. You do it if you want to do it. But I don't know what you think you're achieving by doing it for the football team. You know, it's you made your point a long time ago. It looks like this taking a knee, which, by the way, if we want opinions, I don't think is the right thing to be doing. I think there's
it's got to stop.
a better way of doing it. I've said that from the word go. From the first time that we had the thingy on, there was the kick racism outbound that came on. Was it against QPR or Derby? Was it the night game, the first one? And we've done that instead of that. To me, is what they could do every game, not taking a knee just before kick off. It's all a bit of it's a bit of bravado to say, look, what we're doing and we're saying as players, well, you can do more than that. And there's been a few players out there in Premier League and whatever have said that. It's all sort of gesturing. It's not doing anything. I would rather the players actually done something about it in a better way. That's my opinion on that one, anyway. But as for Gary Rowett out, I don't think it would achieve anything at this moment in time. There's lots of speculation, as there always people say, oh, he would do better if he came back. He would help out. Gary's style is a bit defensive-minded at times. The only thing I'd say about Saturday, Emery, he could have started Tyler Bury and been a bit more attacking. I think I would have done. The boy looks like he's ready to go.
It's big call, Ted, though, isn't it? He hasn't played a full championship game. How fit is he? He's come back from Hartlepool. He's got question marks around some of the stuff that he was filmed on social media doing.
But
he clearly didn't think it was the right thing.
I know what you're saying. I mean, I understand that. But what I look at as a if I was managing the side, I'll be looking at Blackpool and thinking to myself, well, we don't have to worry too much about them attacking wise. We can get at them at the back. You know what I mean? And we seem to sit back and let them dictate a bit. You know, and I don't think that was the right way to set up. You need to have a threat or need an outlet. And listen, the one thing that's been a bit poor in the last few games is our distribution from the back. We tend to bypass the midfield a bit. But I mean, what I've seen of Billy Mitchell, give him the ball. Christ, the guy knows what to do with it. He wants it all the time. Let him start spraying the ball about. You know, our back three have never been the greatest players in the world in the sense of playing the ball out. But that's the only thing I would say with Gary Rowett is that, you know, sometimes he can be a bit defensive. Sometimes I think he takes too long to make a change. But at the end of the day, he is the unluckiest manager we've had because, like we've all said, it's all right screaming and hollering about the Blackpool. But at the end of the day, if you remember rightly, after the last COVID bout that the squad had, we struggled for quite a while before we got going again. And we seem to forget that they did all have COVID at Christmas, but they put in some half-decent performances, you know. And lots of people get blinded by the result. The result against Coventry was a 1-0 win that we dug out and won, you know. So you get a bit blinded. And everyone was saying how good we were, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden we lose 1-0 at Blackpool and we're the worst team in the world. It may not have been a good performance, admittedly. But, you know, you've got to get some perspective on it.
Well, that was my point, Ted. If we'd have gone out and gone all out attacking and Blackpool picked it off, we've got no attackers on the pitch to probably finish the game, if you know what I mean. And we got beat 5-0.
Oh,
what would be worse?
Yeah, listen.
That's my point.
Well, the other thing, we did have the option of Ollie Burke as well. That's why I would say I would have. You could have either started Ollie Burke and said, right, Ollie, I'll give you 60 minutes. I know you ain't played a lot, and then I'm going to bring Tyler Bury on, or he could have gone the other way round. That would have been my choice in going to Blackpool, but that wouldn't have been gung-ho because you still got two sitting. You'd have taken George Evans out personally, but you'd have had two sitting midfield players there, and you still got the 5 that can fall back. That would have been my way to go, and I think that we may well have got some benefits out of that. But listen, it's the manager's choice. Like you say, there's probably the reasons that you've said is why Gary went the way that he did.
Yeah.
But what I would love to say though, and what I would love to go back to was the days when I was a kid, right? Because I used to turn up at Millwall. Yes, I was disappointed at the end if we lost, but I tell you what, they was my team, and I never shout and screamed and everything. I support them through thick and thin.
Yep.
And you know what I mean? It's too easy now to just finger point all the time. And that's what I've been saying all season, that every time we lost a game, people start Gary Rowett out. If we won a game, nobody said nothing. But when then we lost the next game, Gary Rowett out. What is the point of that? You would finish up like you said Gary, I think it was about Watford.
Yeah.
What a mess that they're in.
I know.
You know,
My father-in-law's a Watford
it's-
fan. I was sat with him on Saturday afternoon. He was watching the game with me, and he was like, I can just see how frustrating it is for you." And he just said, "Look, I know we're going down. Give Ranieri next season in the Championship. We'll rip a hole in the Championship. Let him build a team to go up." He didn't even get to Tuesday after that statement.
No.
You know what I mean?
And it's no good for a club. What we are right about though is I think it was either you or Henry mentioned about Brentford. That should be the sort of template that we should be looking at. Listen, let's go on a positive here. We talk about our academy. We got Billy Mitchell and Danny McNamara already come through. Tyler Bure is now on the first team squad. Let's put it that way. Debbie mentioned Alex Mitchell, who I believe next season will come in and play the part that Daniel Ballard's played for Millwall. Deb, I think you're 100% right. He's a good centre half. Boy, there's still Hayden Muller floating around. He didn't quite work for him up at Scotland, but that doesn't mean he's not. He's not going to make it as such. We've got a lot of good young talent coming through at Millwall.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is nurture them through as much as we possibly can. Listen, the big boys will circle around like they are for Zach Lovelace, and they will pick a few of them off. But if we can get a good few of them through, and bless them, play for us for 2 years, see what happens, and then if they're getting to the height for their thingies, we sell them at 10 million or something like that. That's what you need to do. And then you use that 10 million to buy players that are going to make your team better. That should be the template. I mean, we've done it in the past. We've had great players in the past. Admittedly, we've sold them. And when people turn around and say, "Oh, Millwall's a selling club" and whatever, well, unfortunately, that's the size of our club that makes us that way. You know what I mean? We all hope and pray that we get a team together like we did when Tim Cahill and all that was. But we have to remember they was in what was the old, the equivalent of the old third division or League One, as we call it now. You know, yes, and they got themselves promoted, but that wasn't top flight football. You know, where we are now, getting from the Championship to the Premier League, all steps up in the league are hard, but this is the hardest one because you've got all them boys that have been falling out of the Premier League. We've got to play, and they've got bigger budgets, which tends to bring along better players, and that's what you have to look at. So we're still in there, and we are still probably punching above our weight, which is something that nobody likes to hear, but it's just a fact. We're not one of the big boys, but we're in there and we're fighting. And let's give Gary Rowett a bit of support between now and the end of the season, and let us finish as high as we can. Because the only thing that will happen if we keep getting on their backs and keep booing them and keep doing, I'm talking about the booing at half time now and things like that might occur. All that happens then is the team goes down, and we don't want that.
Exactly.
It completely deflates, and it's that we have the most powerful tool is our roar, and the supporters do that. That will push on. That will push them on.
Exactly, and that's a good point to wind that up. That was really interesting, guys, and thank you for your opinions. And my little statement at the beginning or rant at the beginning there set up a good conversation. Thank you for listening, guys. So next up, we will listen to Harvey Brown, Debbie, and Kelly Webster talking about the Lions Food Hub.
First of all, let's hear from Harvey Brown.
Have you heard of the Lions Food Hub? It is now located in the Millwall Community Trust car park. That's beside Millwall's Den in Ballina Road. That Millwall Lioness, Kelly Webster, is involved. Don't forget to help the Lions Food Hub if you can. Thank you.
As Harvey said, they need support, and you can help if you can by making a one-off or a regular monetary donation online at Banquet, that is BANKUET, or on a Saturday you should make donations pre-match at the hub about 50 metres down from the Lions store. Alternatively, you can also contact the team via their Twitter and Facebook sites.
I'm Gary Staff, and I am back with the No One Likes Us talking team of Debbie Julians, Ted Robinson, and Henry Morgan. Now we are going to move to the part of the show where we talk to a Lions legend. This former Millwall midfielder currently applies his trade in the Northern Premier League Division 1 East for Frickley Athletic. He is a Castleford-born boy who started his career in non-league football, playing for Glasshouse and Welfare, Following his progression through their youth system, after 3 seasons, he then moved on to his current home, Brinkley Athletic again, for a few seasons before moving on to York City, into the league with Scunthorpe, Bristol City, and then he arrived at the Den in 2013, where he played 93 games and scored 11 goals. At the end of the 2015, unfortunately, which saw the Lions relegated, he then moved on to Sheffield United, then Fleetwood, Grimsby, Hyde, Boston, Gainsborough, and then back home to Frickley. Phew! Welcome to the show, Martyn Woolford. How are you doing, my friend?
Thank you very much. I'm very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, very well, Martyn. Very well. I've got that right. You are at Frickley at the moment, yep.
Well, no, you haven't actually. I'm gonna correct you on a couple of things there. Actually,
Oh,
I'm still on Frickley's books, but I've retired. I went back there. I went back there for a short spell, and yeah, I found it difficult, found it frustrating, and weren't enjoying the football, and the commitment away from my family just didn't seem worth it anymore. So decided to retire. The other one is, you said I'm Castleford born and bred. My dad would absolutely go berserk at that.
That was Wikipedia for you, mate. I'm sorry.
I need to update that then. I'm a Featherstone lad, which is a huge Castleford rivalry in rugby terms. So
my word. That's like calling a Welshman an Englishman, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is in these parts, yeah.
Bless you. Sorry, Martyn. I apologise.
Oh, no worries. I'll blame Wikipedia. I'll get that updated.
Yeah. I know you've been listening to a little bit of that in the background. I've got one question to start us into the conversation, but did you have any quick thoughts on what we've just been talking about in the show, Martyn?
It was really interesting, actually, listening in for the last 20 minutes about you guys. What you guys were talking about there. I mean, I've looked at. I obviously keep an eye on Millwall, and for me, it seemed like a reasonable season up to the last few games. So to hear you guys talking that everybody's sort of turning down there, were a little bit of a surprise, to be honest. Obviously, I'm not seeing the games like you are. I'm not seeing the performances as such, but I'm just looking at it purely from a results and a league table position. And yeah, it was a little bit surprising to hear that the sort of the fans are maybe turning a little bit, because I mean, if Millwall's got a huge strength over any other team that I know, really, it's the fans getting behind you, the passionate, unbelievable fans when they're in support of you. So to know that they're sort of turning the other way a little bit, I could imagine that being a nervy place to play at the minute, because it does have an effect down on the pitch. Do
you know what, Martyn? I think part of it is, and maybe I'm a bit of an old dinosaur, I don't know, when it comes to football these days, but I think the style of football now, which is a little bit keep ball-ish, if you know what I mean, it always reminds me of a training session sometimes. It dampens the excitement. Where the old style football was a bit more kick and rush, admittedly, but you know what I mean? It's hard for a Millwall fan to get their head round the fact that you've got to keep the ball, and in this sort of standard of football, I think, rather than just keep going long and whatever, you've got to play a bit of football. And I think that may be part of it, because Gary Rowett is sort of described as being a defensive sort of minded coach. But I think for us in this division, we have to set ourselves up to be difficult to beat before we can play any football.
Yeah, definitely. I think any team has to do that. I can't comment on Gary's sort of tactics exactly without seeing it and seeing what you guys are seeing week in, week out. But you do have to start there. I mean, even when I came down there under Kenny Jackett, his philosophy were always nils and ones against. That's what he used to be banging on us about in training. Like, don't be conceding any more than one goal in a game. It's nils and ones against, and that's where he started his basis of what we play. So it was starting from a fundamental defensive position, and then it will kind of build on that, because his sort of philosophy behind that was you can always score a couple in a game. If you're having to score 3s and 4s in a game, then you're up against it. But yeah, I mean, without being able to, like I say, comment fully on Gary's style, there is it has gone that way. Football's gone that way now. You do have to keep the ball for spells. There's nothing worse when you're in the opposition team if you're chasing shadows for a period of time, because it does take up a lot of energy, and players are fitter and all that kind of stuff now as well. So it's that sort of tactics of wearing it down a little bit and then waiting for the opportunities. If you're just giving the ball back to the opposition every pair of plates, then you're the one chasing the ball. So it has gone that way. I see what you mean. I sort of grew up in the same time where it were a lot more direct than what it is now.
Well, here's a tough question, Martyn. What was Steve Lomas's theory?
Exactly.
Say no more. That's what we thought.
Yeah, I think I've about answered that one, didn't I?
How did you get to join the Lions? I'll get that one out of the way first, and then we can carry on with what we're talking about.
Well, I would at Bristol at the time. I must have put I must have put my name out there that day, but obviously no, I would at Bristol. We'd set off doing okay, and then sort of it went a bit. Basically, I weren't seeing eye to eye with the manager down there. I was having a decent season myself, to be honest, but for whatever reason, the manager weren't having me. This sort of I set off the first month that season. I was up there for the Championship Player of the Month, and then just shortly after that, we had our first child. So the performances dwindled while I was getting used to the sleep pattern a little bit. But I felt like I was due a little bit more. A little bit of breathing space with that, which I just didn't get. I was instantly out of the team, and it was sort of one thing led to another. Then January came round, and it weren't right between me and the manager. I knew I weren't sort of in his thoughts. And then the next thing I know, my phone rang, and it was Kenny Jackett on the other end of the phone saying, "Martyn, I want you to come and play for us." So, I mean, that for me. Were enough to go back in the next day and say, look, I want to leave. There's a manager there that wants me to play for the club that he's got. Obviously knew all about Millwall anyway. Knew a couple of lads there at the time, so spoke to them. And then pretty shortly afterwards, one of the things that you touched on when I was listening in were the transfer window. Both the sort of bigger moves in my career from Scunthorpe to Bristol and then from Bristol to you guys were both on. And yeah, it just sort of happened. Blink of an eye. Next thing I was at the Den getting kind of welcomed. It was kind of like welcome Woolford, but you effing know us. So.
I said when Kenny
it was an interesting one. It was welcome more than anything, but there was an underlying you definitely owe us.
Martyn, didn't you say to Kenny when he rang you? Didn't you say to him, you do realise I scored the winner in the playoff final against you, Kenny? You did let him know that.
Absolutely not. No, I wasn't bringing that up. No chance. That'd have been deal off the table, I reckon. It must have slipped his mind that week.
Yeah. Don't mention that one. It's Debbie here. Hi. What was your highlight during your time in Millwall?
Do you know what? I really enjoyed my whole time there. It's up there with one of the sort of spells at whichever club that I've been at that I have genuinely, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show, I genuinely enjoyed the most. There were other spells at different clubs that were great, but genuinely as an overall time at the club, like Millwall is definitely up there, and it means a lot to me looking back on that. Probably the highlight was probably the goal against Bournemouth. To be fair, that were kind of an important time in keeping us sort of in the Championship. I felt like that was the time where it was like, right, Woolford's totally forgiven now.
Didn't you score against Leeds?
You go that far.
I did, yeah.
Actually, yeah, mate, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that is up there as well because most of my mates are Leeds fans, so I very much enjoyed that. My dad's actually printed He's changed his phone now, but for years, my dad had my celebration against Leeds on his phone case for years. He would definitely that got brought up every time in the pub.
Excellent. Brilliant.
So yeah, that's definitely up there as well, to be honest.
Martyn, before I let Henry have a question, I just got to ask: in that Scunthorpe final, what was it like to have been on the end of that Gary Alexander goal? Was it one of the weirdest things being on the pitch when that went in?
Oh, it was unbelievable. Yeah, that one of the best goals that I've sort of witnessed, like being on the sort of same pitch as that's happened. It were unbelievable, to be fair. The technique and everything out of nowhere. He shouldn't have been shooting from there. I don't know what he was even thinking, but it just sort of caught everyone by surprise and nestled in the top corner.
Shouldn't you have been picking him up, Martyn?
Oh, maybe should have, yeah. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe that's what it was. But yeah, I mean, he scored 2 great goals that day, and to be fair, he
missed the easy one.
He missed the easiest one, yeah, and that would have potentially been game, set, and match, and it weren't sort of long after that sort of went up the other end.
Yeah, you can stop there, Martyn.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Didn't know how far to elaborate on that one. But no.
Jeff Burnage certainly remembers it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think we all do. Martyn, Henry here, mate. It's great to chat to you again. We spoke last year. I'd love to get into the mindset, like the relegation season. Like, what happens? Is it like bad luck? Do you just feel like things are against you? Is it just like poor run of form? What are the sort of bits that happen behind the scenes?
It's hard to explain, to be honest. You get a bit of everything. You get like you've just said there. Like, I didn't think that Millwall were in that position already, but you get the sort of the fans that are they've turned against you. So you're going out there in a sort of bit of a nervous state. But it's a tough one because as players, you get sort of. It does feed back into the changing rooms on training days where you get some lads moaning. It's like everything sort of filters down. So like you've got it from the fans coming into to us on the pitch, and then you've got sort of players in the dressing room that's sort of pointing fingers here, there, whose fault it is. I should be playing. Like, you get this. It all gets a little bit disjointed, and as a whole, like, I genuinely think, when you go out there as any player, you are giving your 100%. I don't think anybody sort of throws the towel in, or I'd be very surprised if anybody in their sort of in their playing career, while you're out there on the pitch, is sort of throwing the towel in and not giving it their all. I think it's more of, you get the odd player going into the shell. If I've known certain players sort of handle criticism and feedback from the fans a little bit better than others, some worse than others, but it all has a knock-on effect. But generally speaking, as a team, the training day in, day out, and on the games, you're trying to do everything you can to get out of that situation, and it just seems that anything you do, it's just things are still going against you. Like I say, I think it's accumulation of everything that you mentioned. When you're down there like that, it feels like you're getting all the bad luck.
I just remember that Sheffield Wednesday game. I mean, the season we really struggled, and then we got a goal against Sheffield Wednesday, and I think it was us and them really looking like who was going to go down. It was disallowed. They went straight up the other end and scored. They had a defender in goal, and it was just, we lost 1-0 at home. At the Den, and you're like, there's the season right there. It's so, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's tough to just get out of that sort of funk that you're in. That's probably a better word. Yeah, you just trying your hardest to dig yourself out, and it's just, for one thing or another, it just doesn't seem to happen. When it just seems to be one of those seasons where more and more things were sort of. The harder you try, sometimes the worse it gets, and it's hard to know what to do in that situation. Everybody's sort of looking at different things to help, and because you do get a little bit disjointed as a team. You do get players in the dressing room blaming the manager. You do get the manager looking at his players to dig them out, and it's just all. Come the end of it, you're never really fully working as a team that you should be, albeit that everybody's sort of individually trying to do their own little thing to get you out of it.
Was the tactics from Holloway part of the problem, or do you think he was just trying too hard? Do you think?
I think by the end he was trying too hard. I said last time, which was unpopular opinion, that he's as a whole he's been one of the managers that's learnt me the most across my career. If like day in day out, like he loved the game. He were always trying to teach you stuff. You'd be sat around the dinner table thinking your day's done, you could chill out, and he'd sit at the side here and get the grapes out the fruit bowl, and you'd be doing more tactics. But genuinely, I think the turning point for me, if you look at when he first came in, we were sort of dead and buried. And he turned things round with an unbelievable run. We managed to stay up that season.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the start of the following season, when he did ultimately get sacked, we set off flying again as well.
Injuries.
And I think, again, there was, that's exactly what I was just going to say. The Carlos Edwards being a big one for us in a really pivotal position with the style of football that Holloway liked to play. I think that really did have a huge impact. And from there, then it was again a little bit like what I've just said. It's like Holloway were then trying to fix things, but going away from what his original philosophy was that were doing so well for us. And in the end, we ended up going more direct, which for me isn't Holloway's style of football. And it was just one of them things that for the harder he seemed to try, the more he came away from his own philosophy, and the more we struggled. But genuinely, as a player, he would definitely a pleasure to play under, because it definitely taught me so much on the training ground. I know it's like I say from a Millwall fan's point of view, it's an unpopular opinion, but for me, I think he is genuinely a really good manager.
Cool.
I can tell by the silence that went.
Good night, Martyn.
Yeah. Hello, is everybody still there?
But the thing is, though, Martyn, what you said is not an uncommon opinion. A lot of people have said that. It's just unfortunate. He just caught the bad luck. Like, unfortunately, Gary is at the moment, but hopefully we can spell that before it.
I think a lot of Millwall fans, Martyn, we all thought that he was a perfect match.
Yeah,
he was a little bit off the wall, as we all know, but I thought he was a perfect match for us. And like you say, he did start off okay, and then people forget that sort of thing because we did have struggles. But I think maybe at a different time, with a bit more luck, which is one thing that no manager can control, he could have been a good Millwall manager.
Yeah, I'd say so. And like you say, one thing you just said there is people forget. I think, and people forget so quickly. If you look at the season that Millwall are having at the minute, it's as you mentioned earlier, you weren't far off the playoffs, not so long ago, and then a run of bad results, and all of a sudden it does turn pretty quickly into doom and gloom. And I mean, one of the things you were discussing before I came on, when I was listening, was people calling for Gary to be sacked. And for me, it's just a complete wrong time to do that. It should have been either before the January window, when a new manager could come in and do something about it, or you stick it out and wait till the season. It's not as if Millwall are in a sort of. It's not as if they're in the relegation zone and something needs to happen immediately, especially if you've been having injuries and all that kind of stuff. I just think it'd be the wrong time to change hands in management, because it takes, especially if that January window closes and there's nothing anybody else coming in could do about player recruitment. It's then a tough ask for anybody else to come in working with the player that they've got and instill their philosophy of their style of play in what is a really short space of time before the end of the season. So I don't really see what it would accomplish by doing that at this time.
In your
Wise
opinion,
words.
oh sorry, Debbie. In your opinion,
That's okay.
Martyn, what do you believe is the right sort of attribute a player needs to have to be a good Millwall player? Let's say that,
So
or one
you just
that we
broke off.
like.
You broke off in a really important part of that. I didn't get I didn't get the full question.
I was saying, what would you say is the attribute that a player needs to have to be a real good Millwall player, if you know what I mean, that us fans would accept? What do you believe needs to be within that player to make him that?
It's a really easy one to answer from a Millwall point of view. It's heart and willingness to work hard. I think any of the players that have been sort of highly thought of down there at the Den, they've all been the ones that have been willing to put themselves about, throw a tackle in when needed, but generally just work hard for the team. And I think the fans can resonate with that. If Jimmy Abdou were a great example of that. Without being disrespectful to Jimmy, he weren't the best footballer. He weren't the best sort of. He weren't going to sort of spray a 50-yard diag, or do you know what I mean? I don't want to sort of be disrespectful to Jimmy. His brilliance were in just he covered every inch of the pitch every single game, and the fans can see that. The fans can see when people are working hard. The players that have not done well down at the Den have been the ones that sort of they might have a bit of ability, but then when the back is against the wall and they're not willing to stick the tackle in or run that extra mile for the team, then the fans can sense that.
Completely 100% agree with that. And at that point, we're just going to move on, Martyn, and say thank you for joining us. But we've got West Bromwich Albion at the weekend, who are probably on not the greatest run, but neither have we either really. So it'd be an interesting game. What are your thoughts on that one, Mike?
Tough one because they are up there, West Brom, and it's always difficult to go into something like that on a bad run of form. But like you say, they have had a couple of iffy ones recently. So I'm going to be optimistic for the Millwall's sake and say that they're gonna break the funk this weekend and get a win.
Brilliant. That's what I like to hear. Martyn,
we'll come on again, Martyn.
Yeah, definitely.
Pulled it back right at the end.
Still trying to get that over.
Very interesting, Martyn.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Martyn. We'll take care. Bye from us lot, and we'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you very much for having me on. Take care, guys.
Take care, Martyn.
Bye-bye, Martyn.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll now listen to Bethany Warren talking about Sands United.
We know that some men can struggle to talk about how they're feeling after the death of a baby. We hope that by building trust and a common bond, by playing together as a team, many more will be able to break their silence about baby loss and help others to do the same. Sands United FC has already saved the lives of men left feeling like they had no one to turn to in their grief. Are you a father who has lost a child? Talk to Sands United. They will help. Contact them on sufclondon@gmail.com. That's sufclondon@gmail.com. They will help.
I'm Gary Staff, and I'm back with the No One Likes Us talking team of Debbie Julians, Ted Robinson, and Henry Morgan. Our panellist tonight, Debbie, wants to talk about an activity that she's recently been involved in called Kick and Cook.
Thank you. So just a brief overview, really. When I first came on the show, I came on as a guest, and I was asked afterwards to Eamon, is there anything I can do, Eamon, charity work or anything like that? So he introduced me to Sean Daly and the Millwall Community Trust CEO. So basically he turned around and said, well, we talked about each other. I said, I'm in the culinary world, and obviously my father played for Millwall. And he said, this is what we're aiming to do, is they feed over the summer period. They were feeding 1,000 worth. I think it's 1,000 children, and they would give them, feeding them during the summer, and then they'd also give them a box to take home with a meal. So all vegetables, and they would learn cutting skills and things like that. So what he wanted to do was actually do this within the schools. So that their Kick and Cook came into being. I know the culinary world. I know the Royal Academy of Culinary Arts, and they actually do an adopt a school, and they've been doing that for 30 years. So we have Kick and Cook. So the children go out and play football in one session, and they train with the Lionesses. We have Jordan Wilson going along, who does the training, Tim Sells, beg your pardon. We have the mascot going along as well, Zampa, and they all kick around and they learn about football, they learn about sport. And in the other sector, we're in the classroom and we're doing cooking, and they learn knife skills, they learn all about the vegetables, all about taste, and then they develop a learning and an understanding of healthy eating. So this teaches them enthusiasm in food and cooking, as well as giving them an insight into hospitality industry and hopefully our future footballers in some way. When you see them standing there in their hats and their aprons, and they're so excited when they see the chef coming in his hat or her hat and the aprons, they really, unfortunately, the hero seems to be Gordon Ramsay, not the Queen, when you say that you've been work amongst these people. But the same out on the field, they actually feel that belonging. And this coming week, this group will be going to the Den to watch the game. So it's a very, very worthy cause, and it's brilliant, and I'm so pleased to be part of it. Excuse me. We will be going on. We'll be going on to Turnham in Lewisham, at school there, and also another school, and then that's in the Lewisham and Southwark areas. So excellent. Well done, Sean, and Adopt a School, and Ashley. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. That's superb. And if you want to get involved, obviously you know how to do that, and speak to Debbie or contact the show via the Twitter website. Before we leave you tonight, we've got the visit of West Bromwich Albion to look forward to, and then on Tuesday we host Preston North End. But before we discuss the first team, let's hear from Paul Loading talking about the Millwall Romans and the Pride.
Hello, Paul. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for having me on, and obviously Happy New Year to everybody if it's not too late.
It's been a while since we last spoke, Paul. In fact, it was before Christmas, I believe. What's been happening for both the Romans and the Pride?
Since we come back in the start of the year, it does seem to be we do seem to be having a lot of draws over both teams. Romans kicked off the season with a 0-0 draw at Titans Heroes at home. It was a good game. It was very frustrating from our side. We just couldn't seem to stick it in the back of the net. And I think if we'd have played till midnight, we still wouldn't have scored. Some good positives though. We did create a lot of chances and obviously kept a clean sheet. I think it was just a frustrating day for us generally. Pride also played away that weekend of the 16th. They were away at the infamous Hackney Marshes against Soho Freedom. We're doing really well, 3-2 up into the last couple of minutes, and Soho Freedom actually scored to make it 3-3. But again, some good positives from them and picking up a point for them. Another slightly frustrating day for us on Sunday. We ended up drawing 2-2 against Titans 2 Brewers. Gave away 2 sloppy goals. The first one from a set piece. The centre back got up before our centre back and headed it in the top corner. Second goal was our keeper just having to fumble it, and unfortunately the striker reacted a lot quicker than we did. Our goals were a lot better from open play. it was again just a bit of a frustrating day to drop 2 points.
Draws are you, it seems like. What's coming up next for the both sides?
This weekend, we're actually hosting a team from Edinburgh, the Edinburgh Hotscots. They're coming down for a GFSN game. It's the GFSN Cup quarter-final. We're playing on Saturday. It's 1 p.m. kick-off at St Paul's. Obviously looking to progress in that cup. We were in the final last year, so we are looking to actually win it this year. They're going to be a good side. They always bring a good side down. But say 1 o'clock at St Paul's.
Thanks, Paul. And interesting that a team from Scotland are coming down. I wish you luck in that game and the next few. But before you go, let's have a prediction for Saturday when the Lions take on West Bromwich Albion.
Saturday's game, Millwall hosting West Brom. West Brom 5th in the table, doing quite well. I think Millwall are going to squeeze it low. 1-0, I'll say, to Millwall.
Thanks, Paul, and take care.
Thanks, Gary, and obviously wishing Eamon a very speedy recovery and return.
So, West Bromwich Albion is up next for the Lions. But before we discuss the game, our Stato, Henry has some statistical information for us about West Bromwich Albion.
Well, I mean, West Brom, funnily, I mean, this is both a good and a bad thing for us. West Brom, obviously, playing yesterday evening, managed to lose to Preston at home. So they're coming into our game on Saturday with a loss. They currently won 12, draw 9, lost 7. And you know, I mean, the value of their squad is up and around the the £190 million mark. So you know, this is what we're trying to contest here. You know, like over the last 3 years, I think they've spent something in that region. We've got ex-Charlton player Carlon Grant coming back to the Den. Quick, powerful forward, scores lots of goals at this level. And obviously we're coming off the back of 4 losses, and you know, almost certainly West Brom will take the knee, and you know, we'll begin the game by booing and then trying to get ourselves out of a rut for the first 20 minutes. So that's West Brom in a nutshell. They're obviously 5th in the table currently, and will be pushing for an automatic promotion spot.
Cool. Right. I'll go with you, Ted, first.
I don't think the last night's results helped us, to be quite honest, because if you was West Brom's manager, you know, you're going to be firing off at them, aren't you, and expecting something different on Saturday. And that's why I think it's important, and it's a good sort of point you're making there, Henry. I never really thought of it like that. But this is a game where we've got to be like Millwall. We've got to come out of the box flying, because West Brom are a bit fragile. There's no doubt about that under this guy. I'm not sure that all the players are bought into what he does and what he's thinking, because I expected West Brom to be right in between Fulham and Bournemouth, you know, not mixing it for the top 2, and they seem to be drifting away a bit, and I can only put that down to the manager's style, that these guys don't really seem to get on with. And I think if we can get at them and perhaps get our noses in front and pressurise them, and that, I think that's our best way of beating them. And let's not forget, these games that come up like this, where we haven't won for 4, we're up against a side that's in amongst the playoffs. All right, they lost the other night, but we forget that for a minute. We got Oliver Burke, who didn't he come back to West Brom? Wasn't it West Brom that brought him back from Leipzig? Maybe that guy's got a point to prove. He'll be wanting to prove a point to us that he's worthwhile putting a Millwall shirt on. So, you know, Gary would have had a week to work with him. Hopefully, I hope to see him, Bennett Kofobe and Mason Bennett up front. I think that would be not a bad 3. I'm ignoring Jed because I'm not sure that he is fit to play or whatever. But I think it's vitally important that we come out the traps quickly, put them under a bit of pressure. Let's see what they're made of. If we can get our noses in front, I think with what's going on at West Bromwich Albion, it might turn out to be a good day for us.
Let's hope so. Debbie?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've had 7 games without a win, haven't they? They're on a bad streak, similar to us. And I think we need to close them down. We do, as you said, Ted, was to get out there and go for it immediately and keep that ball and momentum going and keep the attack up
I think
and not give away silly passes.
Yeah, and I think as well, Deb, we must be due a little bit of luck somewhere. I keep thinking to myself, somewhere along the line in one of these games, and that tends to be what breaks a run for you if you're in a bad spell. A little deflection that doesn't just hit the post and come out, but it hits the post and goes in. Them sort of things are what changes the whole mood of
perfect example, Ted. If that missed kick, because basically it was from Malone, goes over the top of the keeper and the keeper doesn't pull up a worldie, you know what I mean? It's one of those, isn't it?
Oh, exactly. I mean, even as poor as we was at Blackpool, Murray Wallace had a blinding chance that he put just wide. And in this division, goals are so important. They make so much difference because, as we say, every game tends to be won or lost by one goal. And I just think our luck has been awful since the new year. Let's be honest about it. And it's about time we had a little bit. So hopefully Saturday's the start of it.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Stop them playing. That's the first bit.
Henry, you got anything else to add?
I just there has to be a reaction after Blackpool, and I think a lot of it's dependent on who is fit and who Gary gambles on playing, because he's not a gambler. He's a safe individual. He's risk averse, so I'd love him to stick Bury on, Burke on, and just go for it. But we're yet to see that kind of attacking intent from him. And also, I've got to be honest, I'll drop Benicophobe and I'll play Mason Bennett up top. And he's was shocking against Blackpool, and the misses against Forest. He's, in my opinion, he's cost us 6 points. So I think he should be dropped for Mason Bennett.
Even Henry as well. I completely agree with you on that one, actually. And maybe he does need a rest. Not a rest, but maybe he needs a time out of the team just to re-qualify.
I agree.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't be against that, by the way. Sorry.
No.
Henry, if it's Bury, Burke and Bennett up front, I had 3 Bs.
That'd be different,
is it?
Some pace there as well.
There is plenty of pace. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mason Bennett as well, and I think he can handle the rough stuff that you get down the middle, shall we say? And I am a big fan of these, but I definitely can't see him going with 3 in midfield like he did last week with Clifton Veld, Evans, and Mitchell. I'm pretty sure it'd just be 2, and hopefully.
But you could even complement those 3 by playing Mahoney behind them.
I'm not sure that he'll go that gung-ho because he's not that way, is he? Like Henry said, he's not a gambler. He's not a gambler. Conor Mahoney is again another strange one. I've said on here before, the guy's got so much talent that you just waiting for a game where he's going to come on and show you, what he's actually got in his locker and that, I was a little bit disappointed with him coming back to full fitness with Smith going, because he's the best crosser of the ball that we've got in the club. I think you're given a chance. But listen, hey-ho, I mean, he's got a lot more to his game than just putting the ball in the box, Conor Mahoney. If we could just get him fit and on a run, and going back to a little bit what Martyn was saying, I think with teams and with players individually, it's all about confidence, isn't it? Get that little bit of confidence in him, and then all of a sudden, and I think Mahoney's one of these sort of people, Conor Mahoney will be doing things without thinking about it. And we'll all be going, but where, you're striving for that, sometimes you try a bit too hard, or sometimes it just don't happen. It knocks your confidence a little bit. But listen, the guy's got plenty of ability, and let's hope he comes good for the rest of the season, because if he did, we wouldn't miss Jed so much. If Jed's not there, he could be a perfect replacement.
Touch wood. Quick predictions, guys. Debbie, prediction?
Well, I would say it's on an even kill, but I'm never going to say that. With Millwall, I'm going to say that Millwall ahead, and I'm going to say 1-0.
Ted?
To us.
Of course.
Well, I think Debbie's been a bit reserved there. I'm going 5-0. No, I'm not really. Sorry, no, I meant 2-0. Sorry.
You've been talking to my bookies again.
Yes.
And Henry?
1-0.
I'll go 2-1 because at the moment I don't think we can keep a clean sheet.
Yeah, I was going to be optimistic.
Yeah. Henry, tell me if I'm mistaken, but it sounded like a struggling 1-1.
Oh, I'm too. I've got to say, I'm too tainted by the Blackpool result.
You're scarred,
it was
mate.
so.
His teeth pulled.
It was so poor. It was so poor. I don't see how you bounce back without significantly changing personnel. And I don't think we've got that because of injuries. That's why I'm saying 1-1.
Fair enough. Okay, Henry.
I mean, Preston. Where do we start with them? Jekyll and Hyde. Look, they are literally 999 wins, lose, draws. So very even coming into us. Obviously, they've just beaten West Brom away from home, which is a cracking result. They have got this weekend. They got Bristol City at home, so that's a very winnable game for them, to be honest. And all of the bookies have got them as favourites. Before, of course, rolling onto us on a Tuesday night game, which depending on the West Brom result, I can't see there being a lot of people there. And Preston do, with the exception of the last couple of seasons, and I know we shouldn't talk about hoodoos and stuff like that, but they do have the knack of winning at the Den, especially midweek. They were, as I said earlier, the end of Mark McGee. They were the end of Mark McGee when he lost his mind and played a 5-3-2 back when 5-3-2 was not what you did. They saw of him, and they went quite a few years of getting draws down at the Den and generally not losing. So it's going to be a tough game coming in, and they're obviously, they are, potentially hitting a bit of form. We'll have to see what they do against Bristol on Saturday.
Fair enough. And then we come back.
My memories of Preston, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'm right with this, is playing them and beating them at the end of the season when we all thought we'd gone up into League One and everybody was on the pitch because they believed that Birmingham had lost.
Wow.
I think that was probably... something 70, something like that.
Yeah.
But I just remember everybody being on the pitch because we thought we'd achieved the holy grail of League One, only to find out that Birmingham hadn't lost, and then they went on to beat Orient and we didn't go up. So that may well be the last time we beat Preston at home. But again, Preston are a strange side, but I think they're on a little bit of a roll. They've sort of picked up in the last few weeks or since Christmas, I believe. And like Henry said, more than a winnable game at home to Bristol City. And if they do win that, they'll be confident. But then, listen, we're Millwall at home, and it's about time we broke a few hoodoos on us, and Preston being one of them. So if we can get a good result against West Brom, I'll be fairly confident we get a good result against Preston. And I just hope that the boys can come out of this rut and, string a few decent performances together and get a couple of wins.
Debbie, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree there. I think if we can get these midweek games and push with them, and it's going to be a challenge. And I quite agree there. If West Brom game goes in the right direction, we'll have a positive view. So we're hoping that they'll push through that one.
Cool. And Henry, have you got anything further to add?
I just go back to all those days back in '97 when we first went down, in my living memory. And I just remember those trips up to Preston and always losing, and it just being a very, very difficult place to go there, us losing up there 2-1, 3-2 when we were almost on the verge of making the playoffs. And it's just a tough place to go to. And, I just think on a Tuesday night, there's not going to be a great atmosphere. There isn't, because of the time of the week. Lots of people I know can't get up and watch those midweek games. So it's going to feel more like a League One fixture. And they're just, they're coming off the back of some good results. It's the kind of game that we really need to start winning. And I think that, this is where the rot is going to have to stop if it's going to. And, if we come off the back and we only get 1 point out of the West Brom and the Preston game, and then we're, skidding onto the Fulham game, Rowett's on a slippery slope there, so fingers crossed.
Fair enough. Let's have some quick predictions before we move on. So, Henry, what's your prediction?
3-1 Millwall.
Hey, there we go.
I'll go 2-1. Millwall.
And then Ted.
I'll have to go 5-0 then, won't I?
Oh,
If Emery's gone 3-1, I've got to go 5-0.
Well, it's all our new signings. They're going to be all up front, and they're scoring all over.
Oh, yeah. Our new signing on Sunday will be up front and score hat-trick.
Yeah, agreed. And I'll go a bit more sensible than 2-0. Okay, so before we go, there's a few mentions I want to say out there. First of all, get well soon, Eamon. We really miss you, and we want you back on the show as quickly as we can. Get well soon. Also, friend of the show and Millwall legend, Brian King. I know you're listening, so get well soon, mate, and hopefully we see you back down there again soon. And of course, we can't go without mentioning dear Isla. Rest in peace, young lady, who passed away this week. Fly up there, darling, fly. And as we've probably all know, there'll be a special moment of appreciation on 7 minutes at the weekend during the West Bromwich Albion game. So well done, Millwall and West Ham, for getting that organised.
Save all your booing, boys, and do the right thing at 7 minutes into that game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Much more
applause.
Much
Let
more
her hear you in the sky.
Exactly.
Sweet dreams, little one.
Indeed. Don't forget, you'll be able to listen to the No One Likes Us talking team, bring reports from both our home and away games. Kai Bennett is our roving reporter at the moment, who will be doing the before, after, and in between reports. And you can also get updates on Millwall Community Matters too on Maritime Radio, broadcasting on 96.5 FM. So that's it from me.
Cheers, Gary. Cheers, Deb. Cheers, Emery.
Cheers, Emery. And finally, let's not forget to keep it safe on the streets out there. I know things have changed and we haven't got to go through those double turnstiles next time we're down the Den on Saturday.
They're gone.
They're gone. You've seen them already, Ted?
Yeah, I was down there today. They're gone.
Excellent news.
Back to normality, people.
Brilliant. So good night from me, and it's good night from them. Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Night all.
Good night.
Night.